Welcome everybody to today's Lunch and Learn session. My colleague Keith is going to do an intro to Power Platform. Power Platform itself, as the title is there, 299 million apps and counting, is really changing the way that businesses are using technology and interacting with new technological advances today. So it's startling to see what has been transforming over the past couple of years. I won't storytelling away from Keith, who is very passionate about this subject. He lives and breathes this, and in the next 20-25 minutes or so, he's going to give you a fraction of a taste of the capabilities and opportunities which Power Platform presents. And then thereafter, we'll move into a little Q&A session. So without taking any time away from Keith, I shall hand over. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. I'm not gonna go small on this. I'm gonna go big to start. And it is a little bit terrifying what I'm about to say. We are definitely experiencing a seismic generational transition in the way that we do tech, in the way that we build technology, in the way that we consume it, but definitely in the way that we build it and whose responsibility it is to build it and do it. It is definitely a thing that all of a sudden we have app makers where we didn't have app makers before, but it's a lot bigger than we all think it is right now. Power Platform is basically a platform for improving your business. So you've got like stuff that you've bought, you've got your off-the-shelf systems, you've got your ERPs, but there's loads of other stuff, big and small. And one of the things to think about with Power Platform, a very, very famous quote that one of our colleagues came up with was, just because it's low code, no code, doesn't mean it's low complexity and low quality, right? It can be superbly high quality and incredibly complex. But I want to talk to that. I really want to speak to that. A few years back, I was still a young pup in 1945, obviously good moisturizer. Alan Turing came along and he sort of like solved the problem of the day, cracking an enigma. And he said, citizen developer, there were no developers. So he's just a clever guy, got a problem. We shall need a great number of mathematicians of ability, as there will probably be a good deal of this work to be done. Well, he couldn't have been more right, could he really? And nothing is more prevalent at the moment than the brain drain. Everyone seems to be suffering in the IT department where they just can't get the people, and we need more people doing this technology stuff and building it and maintaining it and monitoring it and all the rest of it. But I don't know many Alan Turing capable brains, right? Like I've probably met one or two PhD grads who are even come close to being that clever. And they certainly don't need to be a mathematician of ability. I mean, if you're happy to put your hand up and say you're a mathematician of ability on this call, go for it. I will bow to your greatness straight away. But that's a big, bold statement. But that's changed. That's fundamentally changed where we are. 2019, Mr. Nadella stands on stage, CEO of Microsoft, and says there's going to be 500 million apps built by 2023. It's more apps than have ever been built. Right? How close are we to this number? Well, it just so happens, and I've been using this slide for a while, right? This is one of my favorite ones to go to when we talk about Power Platform in a new sense. So 2 days ago, Inspire, this big Microsoft conference, Satya rolls out this number. There are 20 million monthly active users of Power Apps. Not the people at the end of it walking around a warehouse, collecting data on their tablet, putting it into the app that someone's built. No, 20 million active app makers a month. And each one of those has probably got 10, 15 apps on the go, solving various business problems inside of their organization using low code, no code tools. It could also be Power Automate as well. I'm just picking on Power Apps there because it's my favorite thing to talk about. But there's huge, huge business opportunity there. Satya, if you just do those numbers in your head, I think the guy's type of chap who, sort of under promises and over delivers. He's probably read that book. So what is Power Platform? What does it look like? If you've not come across it before, what are all the constituent parts, right? So the most important thing you can think about Power Platform is it's a bunch of API readers, right? And what's it going to read from? So it's got a bunch of data connectors, talk about those more in a moment. It can connect to things that you've already got, like SharePoint. Can connect to Dataverse for Teams. This is like relational database that lives inside of Teams. SharePoint-esque governance in terms of its sort of security layer, owner, member, guest, but it's a relational database, so it's really cool. Dataverse, formerly Common Data Service, which is Microsoft's big bet in the data space, where you've got this kind of relational database management system where you can come and create really complex data models, but also have a common data model sitting behind it, underpinning it all, that automatically kind of connects seamlessly to finance and operations. You can virtualize tables in it from other data sources. It's truly incredible. And then if you really want to, you can connect to Azure SQL and do all sorts of stuff with that. Now, what are you connecting to it with? So you've got Power BI for doing that's reading it, displaying that data, giving you like analytics, Power Automate for moving things around. When this thing happens, it does something. Power Virtual Agents, a chatbot experience on top of your data, any of that data. Bear in mind, data connectors, interesting stuff there. Power Apps, so that's model driven, and also Canvas, the what you see is what you get app, beautiful, lay them out. That's the interaction part with data, the tapping on the warehouse, taking a picture, getting the lat long, all that fantastic telemetry that you can pull out of a mobile modern device. You can surface that in Power Apps and put it into your data. Power Pages, brand new product from Microsoft. It's an evolution of Power Apps portals that was there before, but with a new, much easier to build, way more friendly interface, and you don't need as much pro code experience of building that as you did in the past with JavaScript and Liquid. It's a much more seamless experience to get yourself up and running with Pages. I struggled with Power Apps portals when I first started playing with this thing, and Pages, I got it up and running in like 5 or 10 minutes. I was absolutely blown away. So tremendous job there done by Microsoft. And last but by no means least, AI Builder, a phenomenal way of bringing pictures and predictive analytics into your workloads at a really easy kind of ramp to get you on and learning. And this is probably the most important bit that now sits under this P for Power Platform, right? The grouping, that Power Platform's now got a logo, and that's really important. So if you look across the top, Power Platform is where Satya says you should come first. Power Platform is you should come first place you should come to extend your existing Microsoft infrastructure and products, right? So you should first place you want to do anything in Office, come to Power Platform. D365, come to Power Platform. This is something it doesn't do out of the box. Can Power Platform do it? Do some analysis. In Azure, again, you can do stuff in Power Platform. You want to spin up an emergency account. You want to do something with your IAD. Chain it all together, put a business process around it. Try doing it in Power Platform. And then, of course, you've got your other business apps. But the most important thing here, is that Power Platform logo right there. If you look at O for Office, D for D365, A for Azure, Power Platform is now a P. That logo is brand new this year. It came out a couple of months back, maybe 2 months ago, and it now sits at the same level as those other large Microsoft offerings. So all of a sudden, Power Platform has the same credence in Microsoft as Azure, Office, and Dynamics. And that's the fundamental change that we're seeing across organizations. You know, it's generational, and it really is changing the world. So I'm just going to quickly show, we're now at 770 connectors. When I started doing this, we were at 70 connectors. There's 774 connectors that you can connect to when I was talking about those connectors and how cool that is. There's one for connecting to Oracle, SAP, Salesforce, F&O, Dynamics, you name it. There's also one for getting a Chuck Norris quote, which I think is possibly the greatest connector that's ever been built. It's also premium as well, so you've got to pay for your Chuck Norris quotes because Chuck does nothing for free. But there's tremendous opportunity, and if you can't connect to something, you can build your own connector, which is just phenomenal. But what I really want to talk about more than anything else with you all today is the use cases, and not just the silly apps that people have built, or this app and this thing and that thing, and the what's in the Office fridge app, or the whatever it is. It's the people who are inside of the business delivering change, right? Now, this is Alan Chai from Schlumberger. He used to be their PowerPoint expert. He used to put all the slides together. Alan makes really beautiful apps, right? Inside of Schlumberger, they had an IT manager, Kendrick, really nice guy, had a nickname, Dr. No, right? Because he used to be the IT guy, said no to everything. And Alan built an app. They had Power Apps turned on, and Alan built an app for a friend of his that passed away. And his friend had said, if only I'd have been fitter and healthier, I wouldn't have had this long-term health condition. I would have been okay. So Alan he's one of those kind of people that you find in Power Platform. They're everywhere. Saw a problem, solve a problem, right? He cares. He wants to make things better. So what does he do? Goes out and he builds an app inside the Schlumberger tenant, realizing that everybody sat at their desk all day long. He builds this little app that encourages people to do some exercise, right? To arrange a company run, a company softball match, a company whatever, track your fitness and have a leaderboard of who's doing this, that, and the other, and all this really great stuff. And the next thing you know, Kendrick says, well, hang on a minute, I've got 5,000 people using this app, and people are phoning them up and they weren't too sure about how the governance was going. Schlumberger now, last time I spoke to them, had about 13,000 Power Apps and 15,000 Power Automate flows, right? Not to mention the RPAs and all the other bits and pieces that they've got. It's delivered a complete change to their business. Bear in mind, they're a technology company, right? They do oil and gas pumps. So they're all engineers, all clever. They all got problems they want to solve. So they're connecting to all sorts of incredible things. Alan's helped stand up a community, an internal community, well governed, well architected, with great data stewards to really drive business value forward. Next is oddly enough a lady called Azure. Azure McFarland. She says Microsoft stole the name from her, and I completely believe her because she's a force to be reckoned with. At GSK, GSK put together a tremendous Power Platform team internally. They built some incredible apps. Their warehouse in Ware in the UK, their factory in Ware in the UK, was named by the World Economic Forum as one of the top 44 sites in the world for their technological advancement. And a large part of that was the fact that they had digitized almost every single paper-based process, all of that walkarounds that were happening in the factory, all of those kind of little noisy bits that have kind of gotten lost because they didn't fit here and they didn't fit there and they didn't fit everywhere. Health and safety apps, all sorts of cool stuff that really make a difference to their business. Azure now works for us in the States, by the way, so we can really talk about how great a job she's done. She did lots of the automation around that, really changed the way that the dynamic worked in terms of how much time people were spending on things. And then there's this dodgy ginger-haired fella who's appeared on the screen in front of you. God knows what he built, but when he was at Ariva, there was lots of apps that he'd built in Excel, 36,000 lines of VBA and counting, trying to solve the problems because IT kept telling me that I couldn't have a database and they weren't going to give me a cloud account and they weren't going to give me this and they weren't giving me that. By the end of, just before sort of 2015, 2014, 2015, bear in mind, I used to be a bus driver and sort of supervise the service and all that kind of stuff as I progressed through the business. I taught myself Python, I taught myself a few programming languages, and I was running scripts in the cloud in a server that I was hosting and charging back to the business through my boss's company credit card, right? So I missed the shadow IT. And then Power Platform comes along at the end of 2016. We start building apps, right? And IT starts seeing the apps we're building and they start paying attention and we start working together. Instead of working at odds to one another, we started coming together. We started making one another successful. We started building workloads that intersected the AP point going down, one of the Wi-Fi points going down, checking if that was a false positive before we sent out an engineer. Saved us 25 grand a year, right? Loads of stuff like that. And it was about us coming together to make technology work and putting the governance structure around it, which is one of the most important things you can do to get this thing off the ground, because there's tremendous business value sitting there in people, not like myself, I'm not going to blow my own trumpet, but people who are looking around the business going, well, that doesn't work. I'm pretty sure I could solve that with a workbook because I've got half the skills to do it. That doesn't work. I'll build an Access database. That doesn't work. I'll build a SharePoint site that kind of is an app, but not an app. and I could really do with some proper tools, but I haven't got it. So I'm just going to make do with what I've got. If we take that away and empower them with that creativity, with that drive to do great things inside of your business, then your world's your oyster, and they will help you become successful on a regular basis. You'll be putting out your IT newsletter once a week going, we made an app, we automated this, and the ERP will be ticking away in the background, the big project's ticking away in the background. Yeah, we did this, we did that, yeah, that thing's still going. It's phenomenal. But we knew that there was a governance problem right from the very beginning. And in 2018, a bunch of us came together, myself included. Andrew Walsh, who's my boss at HSO, he was working for a partner doing stuff with the Americans. We had Lee Baker, who's the technical director for Power Platform at HSO. He was at Metro Bank doing this. A wonderful lady, Manuela Pickler, from Virgin Airlines. She now works for Microsoft. Lucy Bourne, who's at Hitachi now, Microsoft. And we all came together and said, look, we're in a room. We spun up this room at a conference and we said, guys, really need to figure this out. And we came together and we sort of just organically made this adoption framework. Some of us were on the team who built the COE starter kit. That's something you might have heard of, the COE starter kit. We'd helped Microsoft develop that, but we knew we wanted a wider governance framework. And that's exactly what we put together on the screen in front of you. It's pages long. It's worth reading, definitely worth reading if you're at the sort of senior C-suite level inside of IT. It's a lot about the strategic value and the tactical importance of Power Platform inside of your organization and what sort of things you need to think about to come to govern it well. And a lot of it is good old-fashioned IT rigor. It's not you won't find much PowerShell scripts in there or anything like that, but it's just kind of like talking about what you need to do to secure it, govern it, understand the value of it, process it. It's phenomenal. It's the blueprint for doing it all. We've open sourced it. It's now completely on GitHub. It's nothing to do with anybody other than the community, and we've invited a load of people in to contribute towards it. So have at it. It's free. Inside of that, we run the foundations of enterprise management. So these are underpinned by the work that we did in the Power Platform Adoption Framework, and these are the 5 pillars of governance that you need to run Power Platform well. And you can see there the COE starter kit is 1/22 of what it needs. But that what we're trying to set out here is not a bunch of policies and a bunch of documents and all the rest of it. What we're trying to set out is how the platform works inside of an organization and how to architect it long term so that you have that roadmap. And I want to just borrow an analogy from my boss, Andrew, who's American. And it's this. So when the Dutch arrived in New York, they did what we've done in the UK. They just created a town, right? Streets, houses, build it wherever you like. It's blank canvas, off you go for broke, no governance, no town planning, no nothing. And they kind of put together this bit on the end of New York. But then people started thinking, well, actually, no, we have got a blank canvas here. And if we do apply a bit of governance and strategy, we can end up with quite an elegant grid-based system, right? And being an ex-public transport person, I can tell you it is no mean feat getting this sort of stuff done. The kind of the 30-year long pole in the tent planning that you need to do to make this happen is mind-boggling, the amount of vision you need. But we think that the adoption framework will help you get there a lot quicker. If you lay over then the infrastructure behind that grid system, and you see now you snap the Lego bricks on, you've got the 1800s, now you start snapping on 19th century technology with transit systems, you see how perfectly it fits over the grid. Now, if you compare that to London's system is a hodgepodge mess of squirrely whirly. If you take the tube map and you actually overlay it on the real map, you can't make a head nor tail of where anything is. You'd never know. But in New York, it makes a lot of sense. And that's exactly what the framework and the platform with the framework is designed to do. Often when we turn up inside of organizations, we find vast piles of technology that aren't interconnected in any way. Because this is an API-led platform, we can start shaping that into some semblance of orders. When I was on the buses, they always say, oh, okay, none of this stuff will ever talk to one another. None of it will. You just got to export your Excel file and give it to Susan in accounts and she'll put you a report together that you can click on. And I was like, this is stupid. We, we're living we were, what then? Sort of 2013. I've seen 2020 Space Odyssey. We're supposed to be living on the moon. You can't be telling me that we can't make that computer over there talk to that computer over there when we've got a space telescope. It doesn't make sense to me. So it's a case of being able to do all this kind of stuff. If you lay that framework out in and overlay that on that network of New York with that planning, this is what it starts to look like. Data ingestion around the top, your interaction layer, reading the APIs, connecting to your structured and unstructured data, cool stuff in there like data factory and events grids for triggering stuff off. All that data lake and Cosmos DB for your big storage, your big data warehouse, and you're throwing on your analytics around the other side and your data bricks for doing your machine learning and all that good stuff. And it comes back around to the top, not just completing the digital feedback loop, but making digital transformation happen in a meaningful way. Not just the migration from Office 2010 to Office 2016 online, when we asked them on the buses what was the difference between the two, and they went, well, Outlook's blue and Excel's green. That's the move to the cloud. That's the only difference anybody noticed. And I was like, well, where's all the apps? Where's all this cool stuff I'm supposed to do? Well, Hear It Right is there. We overlay that. We do actually build beautiful things with this framework. So here's an example of some allocation planners. They're sending parts to a mobile warehouse that runs around the country that's building this hypothetical race car, let's say, lots and lots of parts, and it's connected to Dataverse, right? You've got Power Apps surfacing the data to the end user. You've got Power Automate triggering off events, notifying people by email when things happen. You've got Dataverse's inbuilt ability to have a contextual conversation in Outlook about data around a record, right? Linking Outlook events like calendars and emails and Teams chats to a specific record inside a Dataverse. And they've got thousands of parts they're trying to manage this organization. And then it's all connected to D365 F&O via the dual write. Phenomenal, right? So you want to ingest some more data. You want some CSV import that gets dumped out of an old on-premise server. Azure comes to the rescue, squirts it straight into Dataverse with a data connector. We've got our beautiful connection to Office 365 from Dataverse out of the box. Then you kind of bring in some engineers. Well, hang on, what about the people who are fitting this stuff to this hypothetical race car, right? And this is a real world example, by the way, but I just can't talk about the customer. So inside of this, there's engineers actually fitting it. So now all of a sudden we've gone from planning this on a spreadsheet to actually putting it on the car, right? Like kind of taking a picture, making sure that defect's logged, all that great stuff. Couldn't do that before in a spreadsheet. More management apps, more digital feedback, layering this back, giving some Power BI, giving some analytics to the users. And I'll share one last one before I open the floor up for questions. This is a real world system that we built for a large organization. So you've got basically people coming, you're trying to recruit them. They can't buy a HR system off the shelf because they're the government, right? And not our government, but somebody else's government. You have this portal, this applicant portal. Their back ends on AWS, by the way. You've got recruiters doing stuff through Power Platform. You've got events happening off of Power Automate. We're ingesting data from big HR inside a data factory, bringing in that information from a large, well-known HR system that's government-wide, not internally for this particular devolved part of a government. And you've got organizational planners building things around it, right? You've got your field operations, you've got your decision makers on top of that. You're communicating with APIs, you've got your payroll in there. The interesting bit is when you start snapping this over the top, you layer call centers on it, and all of a sudden you've got something that was for the police, that's also for the military, that's also for other organizations to do applicant management with. It speaks to how it all snaps together like Lego bricks. It's kind of elegant and beautiful, and it's yours to play with already inside of your tenant. You can go and be successful, start building your first app today.
Thank you very much, Keith, for that overview. And it was just a small fraction of the opportunities, capabilities around the Power Platform. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. As we mentioned at the beginning of this session, the next Lunch and Learn will be 15th of September. My colleague Doug McConchy will be giving an overview of analytics best practice and how our companies are taking advantage of the Azure platform to drive further business insights. So I will take this opportunity to wish you a very good summer. Hope you enjoy your holidays. We will be taking a bit of a break and we will be back on the 15th of September. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.